So I've never applied for a job. I led the team that acquired 120 practices in 3 years, so it was high growth. You need to be dispensable in your own business. I did a talk once for the BDIA, and it was entitled "You're All Bad Dentists," and it sold out.
Nice.
Oh, well, sold out. It was packed. If you haven't got organized data within your practice and you overlay AI onto it, it's basically going to amplify chaos. Outsourced call centers will not last past 2026.
I think I read somewhere you talking about how important relationships are
100%.
In business, and that they're sort of the most important currency. And I think that's really true. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I hope to do with this podcast is to meet new people like you. We may have met once at a show or something like that, but never met properly. And also to learn from people, because we all have our own lane. And one of the key concepts in this podcast is strong opinions loosely held. For that to be true, we need to hear new thoughts of view.
Okay.
It sounds like you've got a very broad,
Eclectic,
I think you describe it as cross-category understanding of dentistry, which I thought was really interesting. And as we were just saying before we started recording, I found your LinkedIn articles really considered and well thought out, and with some concepts that I inherently agreed with, and then some concepts that were new to me. And I obviously only own one practice. I believe you've been involved in the acquisition of 120 practices.
Plus, yeah.
And so you've got a lot more experience in that department, and I look forward to hearing about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think I've been blessed in dentistry to be put into positions that just give me different viewpoints. I'll never tell anyone how to treat a patient clinically, because, I haven't got that right to, but I just think dentistry is so underinvested from a business point of view that whether the perspectives resonate or not, it's just to give people different ideas. That's all it is. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I want to double click on that underinvested thing in a second. But tell us a bit about your backstory then, Andy. For those that don't know you, obviously from a very sort of exterior surface level point of view, I've seen you go through Henry Schein, then as I say, involved with the acquisitions, business development at Portman during their sort of big growth phase, I think.
Yeah.
And then latterly MD of Agilio, which is now coming to the end of that experience as well.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about where that's come from. I don't think you had a dental background in the first place. So.
No, absolutely not. And dentistry growing up wasn't an industry that I thought I would end up spending the majority of my life in. Started off with I didn't have a plan, and kind of bumbled through education. Was always told that I was gifted but lazy.
Could try harder.
Yeah, exactly. It was like the guy knows how to do this. He's got the aptitude, but the attitude's just not quite where it needs to be. I didn't find education a challenge. I found it quite boring, and wanted to get out and experience different stuff. Grew up on a council estate, very meager upbringing, wasn't anything fancy or flashy, and had parents that kind of were driving me to have more or do more, originally academically, but then they realized that I wasn't the most academic individual in the world, so they just challenged me to get out and do stuff. Quite early on got jobs, so I think I started working from the age of about 14, paper rounds, working in a newsagents, worked in a chip shop. Did all three at once. I just wanted to feel like I was not only contributing in the household, but contributing, from a work perspective, because money wasn't easily come by from a family point of view. It's kind of like go out and earn it. And I respect my parents for that. Went to university, crashed out after the first term. I enjoyed the party more than the study. And ended up working in hospitality. Quickly went from, I was the youngest licensee in the country at one point. Rose from barman to assistant manager, moved into hotels, became general manager, regional strategy manager, up until an incident happened when I was about 24. I was looking after a hotel. The hotel got held up by gunpoint. I was caught up in that. And it kind of knocked me, and I left hospitality at that point. And I was like, I just, you just got something that happens in your life, and you think it's something that kind of triggers a change.
So what happened there then?
So Consett in County Durham, quite a remote hotel. Sunday evening, generally pretty quiet in hotels. Had a really busy Sunday lunch and stuff, and there was me and another person in the hotel, cashing up and putting things away and kind of closing down for the night. And 3 guys burst in with sawn off guns, tied us up, ransacked what they could get hold of, and left us there. So it was
how scary.
Yeah. So. And I hadn't really, I kind of boxed that for a long time. It was Prav Solanki in a podcast that brought that up.
Really?
Yeah. He was quite a good interviewer, and I do thank him for it. But because I think these things do need to surface at some point. It was a point in my life that made a directional change, and that was that hospitality was probably something that I didn't want to do longer term. So I quit. I went home to my parents, lived in a box room for a while, and ended up working in financial services as a call center rep, selling credit cards to people who didn't want credit cards. So that's character building in its own right.
Yeah. There's a lot of similarities here with Stephen Bartlett's story.
Yeah,
drops out of uni, first worked in a call center.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of learn skills by doing these things that are not defined career paths, and I think it gives you real world experience. And I've listened to Stephen's story, and there is a lot of similarities. And I was chatting to the COO of a DSO at an event last week, and she was like, "My story is very similar to yours."
Really?
So I don't think it's entirely unique, but not often talked about. Unless you go down the traditional academic route, and if you haven't and you've kind of worked your way through. You don't tend to shout about that. There was one time I interviewed in my career, and it was while I was in financial services. And again, I seemed to progress in positions quite quickly, and I progressed to a department manager of a financial services business, and I was applying for a director job, and the SVP of the bank was interviewing me and said, "Do you think it's hindered you that you don't have an MBA?" And my answer was, "I'm sat in front of you, aren't I?" And he kind of went, "I got the job." Yeah. Yes, I've thought, a few times, should I go and do that now, and should I revisit it? My wife's got a master's; she's the head of languages and law in a school, and I kind of think, should I? But then I kind of think, what other than like some self achievement, what would it actually do for me? What would it change?
Yeah, well, it's the same thing that I say to dentists and young dentists that have just qualified. Should I go and get this qualification or that qualification? My answer is always why.
Yeah, exactly.
Who are you trying to impress by having those letters after your name?
Yeah.
I mean, I have done. God, I'm constantly investing in self-education.
Yeah.
But I've not bothered about qualifications other than the ones that I need to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with you, and I think. Testament to what you said when you were telling your story, it reminds me of my brother, because he is far smarter than me. He's 6 years my younger. Would always kick my ass in poker and that sort of thing. Very, very clever chap. But just didn't fit into the educational square box that is there. And I think that's one of the failings of the educational system, is that even with highly individuals with high aptitude and intelligence and drive, sometimes they don't fit into the traditional mold of education, and nor should they, because they're unique thinkers. Everyone that we respect in the world is a unique thinker, really. It's not the people that followed the well-trodden path, I think.
Yeah, and I think not having a direction was actually the best direction for me. My brother is a registrar of a university, highly academic, and him and I talk a lot, and he's like, sometimes I just wish that I had done what you do, because it felt like it was freer. But he was in a very formal and rigid kind of process, and it was kind of like, get your degree, get your master's, carry on. And then he went into the running of universities and has worked around the world and is renowned in his profession. But I think sometimes he feels, okay, your life seems a little bit more carefree and easier, which it's not. I think I've had to work harder. It's just not in a as structured way.
Yeah, it's more fluid.
Exactly. And
that's kind of what. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's kind of what I noticed about when I was looking at your LinkedIn and your career. I was like, 3 years here, 3 years there, 3 years there. I was like, I wondered in my head as I was looking through it, is that just what happened because that's what happened?
Yes.
Or is it more that in your own mind you sort of you're always looking for what's next, and you're always looking for the development and the progression.
Yeah. So I've never applied for a job.
Okay.
I did know I have. That's a lie. The call center job I did apply for.
And you got it.
I got it, and that was a temp job, so it wasn't even a real interview. You know, it was kind of like a temp agency saying, "We need call center staff. Can you speak? Yes, on you go." It seems to be opportunities, and I do look at my career, and I think I honestly think that people think that I'm somebody who jumps around. The honest answer is no. I've begrudgingly moved from every role that I've had because I've really enjoyed it. And if you speak to anybody in any of the organizations in dentistry who have worked with me or for me, you know, hopefully they'll say, listen, you know, the guy hasn't left because things were not going well. He's left at the kind of height of the success. And I'm the type of person that really thrives in the building and making, as opposed to the kind of babysitting and general
management.
Yeah.
Thing,
so, and when I came to Agilio, it was with a blank sheet of paper. We bought a couple of businesses here, Code Plan, Isofarm. Kind of don't know what to do with them. You look like you're someone who knows what you're doing or talking about. Could you come and help us? And at the time, Portman was in its highest growth phase ever. I was involved in the Dentex discussions to merge those together. I'd led the team that had acquired 120 practices in 3 years, so it was high growth. And Sam Whaley-Cohen's a guy that you want to work for. He's quite enigmatic, and I like people like that. I think I'm drawn to people that are quite enigmatic. So it was a really tough decision to move, and equally leaving Henry Schein, I looked after 11 European countries from a strategic point of view and worked with the MDs of each of those markets to understand dentistry and how we can affect it from a business point of view. So no box shifting, because it's lower margin activity. You kind of need to show dental practices and groups in any market that you can add more value than the 1p off a box of gloves, as an example. So my job was to kind of affect that, and I loved it. I got to travel. My wife said it was the happiest time for her as well, despite the fact we had two very young children, and I was away a lot.
Is that why?
Yeah, no, well, for me it was. Yeah, for her, she was kind of at home dealing with it. I think she felt that I was challenged more, and I'm happier when I'm challenged than when things are just kind of static. So yeah, it looks like I may have bounced around a little bit. It's only 3 or 4 jobs, I guess, in total, all by chance. But equally, I'm thankful to every one of them because it's added to the perspective. And what I've tried to do, and hopefully people will say this about me, is master each of the roles that I've been in, and use that to kind of then help
the next stage.
Yeah, the next thing. Yeah.
And how do you, I mean, you mentioned that you left in each of those situations at a really great time within the business. Yeah. How did you vet those opportunities? Alex Hormozy talks about the lady in the red dress being like the nice, shiny new thing.
Yeah.
And how that can be a huge distraction, pulling you away from your goal. How did you ensure that you weren't being just attracted by the shiny newness?
Yeah.
Have you got a matrix for decision making in those sort of scenarios?
My wife says no. She thinks it's all impulsive.
Right.
And every time I've made the decision to move, she's like, "Oh, here we go."
Yeah.
I guess for me, some of my roles have been more public in dentistry than others. So some of the roles I've been visible in the market, and some roles I haven't, and that's on purpose. That's intentional. So Agilio, I've been behind the desk more than on the stage. Whereas with Henry Schein, it was completely the opposite. I was the kind of shop front and front man for a lot of the things that we did in Henry Schein. So it's not what's shiny and new. And this is going to sound really cheesy, and I've said this a few times now, but it's absolutely true. When I make a decision to do something like come into dentistry, I knew that I could never affect patient outcomes clinically because I'm not a dentist. But indirectly, I could absolutely create situations to improve patient outcomes. So each of the roles that I've taken have been with a view of ultimately affecting patient outcomes positively. And whether that's helping dentists navigate business, creating solutions at Agilio that really, really make running a dental practice easier, It's all purposeful, and now the next phase of my life will remain in dentistry. Absolutely, after 15 years, I couldn't think of anywhere else to go. But equally, it's now using the experience that I've got and working with entrepreneurial founders, small groups to DSOs that kind of want to use my experience in a way that allows me to deliver value without becoming a permanent fixture. And I think that for me now, in the point in my life, that's probably the most valuable thing that I could give back to the industry. I want to be participative. I want to lobby. I've already started to construct a paper that I'm going to release later on this year, which is about the operational maturity of dental businesses for investors, financial institutions to use as a benchmark. Completely voluntary. I'm not looking to try and create more regulation, but do something that will improve the industry for years to come. So that's kind of the passion now. It's I'm really grateful for everything and every experience that I've had, and now's the time to kind of use that to really try and change the industry, because the next 10 years time is going to be completely different to today in our industry.
Indeed.
And what I'm trying to do is see if I can help navigate that to a better place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, you're the second person that sat in that chair today that said that your main focus outside of doing clinical dentistry was to find a way to improve patient outcomes and health. Yeah. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, and I do say if you wake up in the morning and think that that's not your mission, you shouldn't be in dentistry anymore. It should absolutely be everybody's mission, whether you're in a surgery or outside of a surgery. It should all be about the patient.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, no goal is, I think, going to get you to a position of happiness and fulfillment if it's purely egocentric. Yeah. Where the true joy is in giving to others and having a meaningful impact in other people's lives, I think.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned Prav earlier.
Yes.
And I think I was listening to Prav on a solo episode on dental leaders while I was on a run. And I think I heard him mention you and his experience. Obviously, the Fresh moved into Agilio.
It did.
And he was very complimentary about his experience. He obviously... very much like me, entrepreneurial. I don't think he's really been employed before.
Never.
He's probably not employable, and so like me. And so he, but he spoke really, really highly of I think that whole experience.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you've not done an MBA. Your leadership style and skill, I guess. How would you describe it? How do you actively educate yourself in it? Is it just something that you feel has come naturally to you?
Yeah. So I've been asked this question a few times now, and Prav's been really gracious about the experience that he's had. I'm his boss, according to him, and he calls me boss, and he's never had a boss before.
Yeah.
He's been a pleasure and a challenge to manage it all in one.
I'm sure.
And I think that from the Portman days through to Agilio and acquiring businesses within Agilio and integrating them in, I've tend to be the relationship lead because it's just natural to me. I think relationships are just easy, and my wife says that as well. How can you walk into a room full of strangers and make best friends within minutes? And when we go on holiday, I always tend to find a crew, and I'm just happy doing that. So in terms of my leadership style, I do read and listen to podcasts a lot. I was listening to the Kevin Hart podcast recently with Stephen Bartlett.
Okay,
and that was really interesting to me because I didn't put Kevin Hart and leadership and business and strategy together, comfortably, but it absolutely did go hand in glove.
Smart chap, yeah.
Very, very smart. So I do that, but more importantly, what I've done is used experiences of good and bad leaders that I've had personally to try and shape a leadership persona myself. So I try and take the good things that I've experienced out of individuals. So a caring attitude, trying to be myself. I tell everybody everything about my life, much to the disgust of my wife. She's like, you don't need to tell everybody everything. And I'm like, I kind of want, and it's not that I want to, it just happens. And I think what that does is create authenticity, and try not to tell people things that I can't deliver on, because I think that's really important. And just take the good points of my experiences. So I was talking about Sam Welly-Cohen just before, and how enigmatic he is and engaging. And I'm not saying that I'm a Sam Welly-Cohen, because I'm not, but I've strived to be more like him, just because I've seen when he's talking to groups of people, or talking to investors, or talking to founders that are thinking of joining the group, how engaging he is. And that's been my kind of mantra. Just take the best of what you've experienced and try and create something of your own. I'm constantly adapting. There's sometimes that I think, I could have done that better. I am a self-critical person, and that's my whole life. I am critical about everything in my life. It's one of my development areas, shall we say? But I'm aware of it as well. So when I become too self-critical, I'm aware that I'm probably being hard on myself. And it's people like Prav and comments that he makes, like, I couldn't ask for a better boss. The truth is, he's never had another one to compare to. So I'll take it while it lasts. And they kind of give me the drive just to kind of carry on. Yeah. I don't know whether that answered the question.
It did, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. I mean, what I got from what you said was you use every interaction that you have and have had along the way to shape and improve your own execution. You lead with authenticity, which is very true to my heart as well.
Yeah.
And you're hypercritical of your own performance, which, like many things in life, is a strength and a weakness, right? I mean, being hypercritical allows you to refine or forces you. It doesn't even allow you. It forces you to improve on your performance. It also derives anxiety and worry and everything else.
It does.
But it's, as I say, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
You just got to try and not grab the side of the sword that has the blade on it, and try and grab the handle.
Yeah, and I think through my life, that's the times of being self-critical have probably been my darkest. Because you can kind of spiral. And somebody without formal qualifications, etc., I think that's part of the self-critical part of me. Are people judging me?
Like an imposter syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. And I completely believe that I've got imposter syndrome. There's times that I'm in situations thinking, how the hell have I ended up here? I was in Belgium with the investors of Core. I'd just become the business development director. I was a shareholder, and they had an investor dinner over in Belgium. And I was sat at a table, and next to me was the dean of Harvard University, and then round the table it was all Ivy League school deans and registrars, etc. And then there's me, this council kid, kind of sat there in between all these people, engaging with them. And at the end of the night, the feedback that I got was that it was just really refreshing for somebody to come in from outside and have a different perspective, and I connected, and I do think the whole thing is about trying to connect with people. And I used to say this from a sales point of view. I'm not a salesperson, but I'm okay at selling.
From your call center days.
Well, yeah, call center, yeah. And then trying to get, when you're trying to buy dental practices for a corporate group, and corporates don't always have the best reputation. You have to sell. And I created connections with a lot of the practice owners that we brought into the group, and I class a number of them as friends. Some of them thank me for it, some of them don't, but I think seller's remorse is part of the journey as well. So yeah, connections are really, really important to me, really.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important things in business, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like many of you, aligner treatment is a big part of my day-to-day clinical workflow. And one of the latest bits of technology I've implemented in my clinic to optimize this orthodontic treatment is dental monitoring. Dental monitoring is revolutionizing orthodontic care by bringing patient appointments to their phones. Leveraging clinically proven cutting-edge AI technology, dental monitoring helps me hit the sweet spot between optimizing patient care and treatment time efficiency. You can monitor patient compliance, hygiene, and aligner progress remotely while maintaining regular and professional contact with patients throughout their journey. It really is a big USP. Far better care with far fewer appointments. So if you're interested in joining me and upgrading the aligner journey for your patients, visit dentalmonitoring.com/contact point to learn more and get a special discount off your starter kit. That's dentalmonitoring.com/contact point for your special discount. Back to the show.
Let's go into that acquisition time at Portman.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm a dental practice business owner myself, and having experience of that simultaneously with the experience of running Parlour and being in the consumer sector, there's a load of overlap and lots of very, very different parts. And I'm sure you've seen very different parts of the dental business landscape as well.
Yeah.
What do you think? I guess the best way to describe it from your angle would be, what do you think makes a very an asset that someone like Portman would be really eager to acquire?
Yeah.
What makes for an acquirable practice, I guess, is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, and I've talked about this a lot recently because I'm with the transition I'm making and kind of reestablishing myself in the dental space. I've used perspective from past experience to kind of position what I want to be in the future, if that makes sense. So practice acquisitions has come up a lot, and I'm getting asked that question. And I really think that from when I was buying practices at Portman to now, what makes a good practice has changed already, and it's going to continue to change for the next period. Investors are now more aware that it's not just about how many surgeries, what EBITDA, etc., and building a group to try and then flip it.
Yeah.
They're asking more questions about governance and structure, systems, processes than ever before. So diligence was always based loosely around what operating systems do you use, what compliance solution do you use, what PMS do you use, tick, 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 tick.
Are you sort of safe?
Yeah,
in
exactly.
essence?
Yeah. What was the performance of your last CQC inspection? That type of thing.
Yeah.
But it was all mechanical. What it didn't do is really get under the hood of how is governance structured within a dental practice or group. If you look at a dental practice or group of a certain size where they've got functions that have got responsibilities within that business, so somebody responsible for HR, somebody responsible for CQC, what you tend to find is those individuals go and try and solve problems for themselves without thinking of the impact the solution will have on the wider group. So an example of that is in a group of 50 that are looking to put a HR system in for the first time, normally led by the HR function of what system they're going to use, etc., etc. But what they don't understand is that can have a real impact on associate recruitment and retention, or morale from a staffing point of view. Everyone seems to think that they need to fix their solutions in their problems in silos rather than thinking of things holistically. And now with investment, they're going to start looking at that holistic view. So is data connected all the way through, or is it siloed within a dental practice? And can you use data to make informed decisions without feeling? When a practice is an individual practice or even a small group, a lot of the decisions that are made are based on how you feel. And even with the advancement of data, you look at the data, but still know because you're in that business and you understand what's going on. But when you
can look at the new leads coming into a practice, but you can know in your heart that there aren't new patients converting later down the line or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And if the operation's small enough, you'll know if associates are happy, if they're underperforming immediately because you've got put your finger on the pulse. But when you get to a larger group, you just don't have that same luxury anymore, and you're reliant on other people to feed you information to make decision, and you need the data to be able to make. I believe you need the data to be able to make that decision. So the old way of acquiring dental practices has and is continuing to change. So it will always be a multiple of EBITDA. That I don't think that's going to go away, but the structures that sit around it in terms of, is it 100% ownership by a corporate group? Is there an earn out in place? All of that is going to change because when you sell a business, if you're tied in for a number of years and you're kind of targeted to still deliver growth for a smaller amount of value, is your motivation going to be the same?
Of course not.
And you know it, yeah. And you can see that, and over the years, you can see clinicians who have sold their business to a corporate group and then wanted to participate in the growth of the corporate group, and those that just want to finish their own out as quickly as possible and kind of get out of there.
Yeah.
So now when you look at a practice to acquire, governance, systems, data, but also have you got heroic heroes in there that are risky if they disappear?
Key man risk.
Yeah, exactly. And you tend to find the principal dentist is the lead performer within a business, and now the kind of risk profile of that is increasing. If it's one individual or two individuals in a group of people that are generating 50, 60, 70% of the revenue within it, that's a red flag. So I think that there is an evolution that's going on. It's driven by the fact that the risk profile from an investment point of view has changed, interest rates have changed, just everything's changed.
Yeah.
And you could see that with all the corporate groups who stopped acquiring. They literally just stopped overnight, and it wasn't for a short period of time, it was for a prolonged period of time. And whilst that's now changing, and corporate groups are starting to acquire again, they're doing it in a different way. So they're looking at shared ownership models and rolled investments into the larger group to try and create that
like dental beauty type structure.
Yeah, exactly. And De Novo are doing it. Portman have now gone out with it.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's going to be the prevalent offering within dental practice acquisitions now by corporate groups, and I think the rest of them will follow suit.
Really, you think everyone will move more towards that?
Yeah. But
sort of 60-40 type split deals.
Yeah. And if you look at practice transitions generally, whilst the corporates have been out of there, there's been this surge in small group formation, and they're probably more well governed right now, because as the industry's been maturing and the access to data has got better and systems have become more connected. The infrastructure they've been putting in place when they're 3, 5 organizes them. So when you get to 30 and 50, you've got a structure in place that is well run and well governed. The groups that are already at 150, 200 who thought we'll just fix that later.
Too slow to act.
Exactly. And now they've got a chaotic operating model that's a lot more expensive to fix than if they had done it when they started out.
Yeah, interesting. So it's almost like the startup versus the big incumbent corporate group, where they're quick, they're nimble, they can implement rapidly, and therefore as technology is developing so quickly, they're able to implement these things far ahead of the big groups who have to put it through 8 people to get a sign off, and therefore they're actually structured much better because they're using the latest and greatest tech.
100%. And you see in some of the corporate groups divesting acquisitions now because they've realized that spread isn't as valuable as concentrated delivery. So buying practices within 10 miles of each other that end up competing with each other, it just isn't a good model now. So the race to become the biggest, I think, isn't there right now. I don't think anybody wants to just be the biggest dental group. I think they want to be the most well run dental group. And if you look at the investments in my dentist from Bridgepoint have got experience in dentistry and did a very good job with their last investment. And my belief is that they're going to transform an asset that was probably bought under the multiple that it could have been acquired for, and sell it at a much bigger multiple because they've transformed the operational side of it. But the investment they're going to have to make in doing that for a group of that size is going to be significant. So I think the race for the crown of being the largest isn't as prevalent as it was maybe 3-5 years ago. And that's part of the reason why I've tried to create an initiative to give an operational maturity index. So groups of all sizes, whether you're a one practice entity or you're a 100 practice entity, you can show your operational maturity on a similar vein. It doesn't matter about the size; it's about how well governed you are.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what are like the three, let's say, I'm a big fan. Have you read the book Build to Sell?
Yeah.
Great book.
Yeah.
I think about it all the time. And I have no plan to sell my practice anytime in the near future. But I'm always thinking about the fact that, heaven forbid, I do break my arm or die or something like that, and the practice needs to be sold.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be a dead duck that actually was a very successful business, but then actually not a very sellable asset.
Yeah.
What are the sort of 3 or 5 or whatever tips that you could give to someone like me who owns one practice and wants to make it something that would be attractive to one of these corporate groups, or facilitates the freedom to then build their small group from there, which seems to be quite popular?
Yeah, so I'm going to focus on one initially, and you in the kind of question you answered it as well, which is you need to be dispensable in your own business. So if you're the key man risk within there, it's probably not unsellable, because I don't think any practice is unsellable, but the value of it will be a lot lower. If you disappeared overnight and you were generating the most revenue, or strategically you held all the cards and made all of the decisions in isolation, it would be very difficult to get the maximum value out of that business if you was no longer in it. So the one main guidance outside of make sure your operating systems are all in line, make sure you can get data from the PMS through to the ERP, all of that stuff.
Through to the what? Sorry.
So the finance system at the end. So right. Yeah, and when I joined Agilio, I said we never want to be a PMS, we never want to be a finance solution, because there's many of them that are really, really good out there. We want to own the middle space, so everything that happens in between those two things. And that's when I'm talking about, your operational platform isn't just what PMS solution you're on or who you're using for your accounting software. It's what's happening in between. So what do you use for your HR? How do you train your staff? How do you ensure compliance, not just from a CQC perspective, but all compliance within that business? How does that connect together and then feed into your management MI? So when, I'm not sure if you get a report on a monthly basis of how your business is doing, but if you do, does it include the tasks that have been completed against the CQC requirements? Does it include if you've got a net promoter score for your staffing? How are they feeling right now? They're the types of things that will add value to your business.
Interesting.
Yeah, but when it's an independent practice, they're generally overlooked. They're just as important as if you're 50 practices as if you're one.
And it's best to set it up when you are one practice.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I work with CareStack, and I get a report out of CareStack in terms of the key metrics. We then run reports. I work with a business coach myself, so we run our own internal reports on number of exams per clinician and production per clinician and production as a practice and net profit and all those sorts of things, costs of expenses, but nothing, I guess, on the softer side of things, if you can call it that, in terms of what CQC tasks have been completed this month, what should have been completed. That's all stuff that goes through Agilio, is it?
It does, yeah. So all of the solutions are connected, and then you can export into, if you've got your own BI solution, you can export out, or you can query within. And we've been working really hard to connect the systems, because being a collection of acquisitions, you're buying software solutions in isolation, and that's been great. And we've bought Dengro, we've bought Dental Compliance Made Easier. We acquired those guys. We've obviously got iComply, iLearn, iTeam within our stable anyway. So we had everything to own that middle space. But what we didn't have is the connected view. And over the last 2 years, we've been head down and connecting those solutions together. So Agilio One was recently launched into the marketplace. It's the first time you've got connected views of compliance, learning, and HR in one place, that you can then use with the rest of the MI that you generate for your business to have a holistic view of everything. Even patient sentiment. I mean, patient sentiment, I think, should be on every board pack. A lot of the groups I've worked with, it's not. But going back to my point on patient outcomes, that's what we should be delivering at the end of the day.
How are you quantifying that?
So everyone who's coming for an appointment, they get a survey to rate their experience, and You're working on the consumer side of dentistry as well as the clinical delivery side. The patients have become more consumerized than ever. They're not looking for clinical outcomes per se, unless there's something clinically wrong that they need to have something happen. They're looking for an experience, and they'll rate that experience, and that will determine. I did a talk once for the BDIA, and it was entitled "You're All Bad Dentists," and it sold out. Nice. Oh well, sold out. It was packed.
Yeah.
People had rotten fruit ready to throw at me and stuff like that. And my point for that whole session was, I'm not a dentist. I don't know what is good and bad dentistry. Unless I'm in pain and I go to the dentist and the pain is resolved, I don't know what's actually happened. If what's actually happened in my mouth is good or bad dentistry. But what I do know is how I feel. So I go back to the kind of council house days where we went to an NHS dentist that was just what we did. And I remember we used to go in, and the seats were the kind of old ones that you got in the school, the plastic seats in the waiting room. And I remember vividly behind the reception desk, there used to be a shelf at one point that was no longer there, but what was there was holes in the wall. And it was just it wasn't a nice experience. And I remember sat in a chair and them talking about my oral health, and it wasn't particularly great. And talking about me and not to me, and consulting with me. And I walked out feeling really bad. That's such a bad dentist. Probably a brilliant dentist. But
clinically could have been brilliant.
Exactly. So the consumer side of things, the patient sentiments, I think is equally as important from a KPI point of view as the number of patients that are seen, the value per chair, etc., because they're going to drive better lifetime patient value, more referrals into your practice, which is a lower cost to acquire. Churn. Exactly. Yeah. So but it seems to be largely not forgotten or purposely forgotten, but just missed because
not measured.
Yeah, exactly.
What's not measured is not managed, as they say.
100%.
And so the more modern acquirer in today's marketplace will be looking more at these sorts of connective tissue between the sort of standard metrics that would be used, such as EBITDA multiples. And
that. I've worked with a number of private equity businesses now. So understand what they kind of look for when they're invested in a dental business. If it takes days to produce the standard information, which is more than just the financial side, that's a flag. And every PE firm has masters to answer to themselves, so they've got people that are giving them the money to then go and
the
buy
LPs
these
and the things on top of them and everything.
Exactly. And in dentistry, all of the masters are going to the dentist as well, and they're all consumerized, and they're all looking for this feeling and experience. So when they're governing an investment, they're looking to see whether that investment is operating in the way that they would expect it to, if that makes sense. And a part of that is around the experience that they get. Connected operations now are the way forward. And I'm not saying that you should just use one solution. I would love people to just use Agilio, because that would
I'm sold. You said you're not a salesman, but I'm sold.
Yeah, well, that's good. But it's absolutely right. And even with the next phase of my evolution, I'm remaining with Agilio as a non-exec director, and I'm invested into the business. So I'm always going to champion not what I've created, and I'd be egotistical if I said it was completely mine. It's not. There's a collection of really, really talented operators, ex-practice managers, nurses. I've got 2 dentists that work in Agilio. They're the ones that have constructed it. I've just had the pleasure of leading them. But I want to see it continue to grow and succeed. And like I said, I'm not leaving Agilio, but moving on when the businesses are high, working with more independents than any other solution provider, more DSOs as well. And continuously developing and innovating. We've had a new C-suite that have joined the board recently. None of them from dental, but from a solution provision background. So coming in with another angle that now takes Agilio to the next level. I do think that connected vein running through any independence or group, whether it's Agilio or not, is the right way to kind of structure the business for future. And then if you're there or you're not there, it would still carry a value that you should get, if that makes sense, rather than what people want to give you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So two takeaways that I've taken from what you said there. Number one, if you are the key man risk as the owner, make sure you stop that immediately.
Yeah. And that's hard because
it's very hard because I'm trying to do it at the moment.
And
I'm trying to empower and encourage my associate dentists to do more and to upskill and to improve communication skills and all of the things that are important, or all of the things that I think I do naturally, but not that I have any specific extra skills in, just that I've crafted over my 14-year clinical career. But it's a strange one. I was chatting to my wife about it this week, where I'm stepping back from doing a lot of the sort of Invisalign and that sort of stuff that I've done for many years and very much enjoyed, and referring a lot of that to my associate dentist now as I focus a bit more on the surgical side of things. And it's quite a strange feeling, and I'm sure other practice owners who are trying to do the same thing will empathize, giving away cases where you're like, oh, that'd be a really nice case, that's going to look great, and actually you're having to hand that off. And that's strange from a clinical enjoyment point of view. It's also strange from a financial point of view. And naturally, I think during that transitional period, you're going to see a reduction in your profit, because clearly if someone else is doing the work for you, you're not going to make as much money as if you're doing it yourself.
And that is the kind of the quandary. It's really easy for me to say, don't be the key man, but I'm not the business owner, and I completely get the change that affects within a business, financially, enjoyment, emotionally, all of those things. But the reality is, as a business owner, and again, I'm saying this as a non-practice owner, and like I said, I do say things that are slightly uncomfortable at times. I believe that you should want your associates to have those cases, even if they are really enjoyable to you. You should want them to have that experience that you have had and enjoy yourself.
Don't just give them the rubbish cases that you don't want to do.
And there's so many practices I've seen where that happens.
Yeah, me too.
But then you see some really well-run practices where a principal has made that shift change, and profit has been impacted. Profit is generally impacted short term, not longer term. You said that you were focusing on surgical cases. They're not lower value treatments. They may be different in what you do, but they're not lower value. So I think the dip wouldn't be long term. It'd be immediate. But I think the impact would be happier associates. And happier associates, I would say, happy wife, happy life. And I think that you can translate that into dentistry as well. If you've got happy associates, it's going to be easier for you overall.
Associates a more challenging word to rhyme, though, isn't it?
Yes,
so you need
to
think about that.
No, I completely
We won't be able to work that one out now. So key man risk, number one. Number two, connect the dots between just your standard PMS operational reports, your standard accounts, financial reports, all those important governance pieces in between. They need to have metrics associated with them as well. And they need to be easily accessible, and reports, if you are in the process of being acquired or looking to sell your location, be able to whiz those reports over immediately, and that's a sign of a well-run practice in terms of the acquirer.
Absolutely.
Is that about right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when businesses are getting ready to transact or even looking to raise capital, all of that information is going to be asked for. And I'm working with a group right now that's the post Agilio. I'll work with on an ongoing basis that are looking to raise capital to grow the group. And the first thing I said to them is, this is the data that you don't currently have. This is the data that if you put your opportunity in front of an investor today, would determine whether they want to see you or not. So even that first view of an opportunity, you can really shape the terms that you're going to get from an investor just from that IM up front. And if it's incomplete, or the data's woolly, or there's pro forma in it rather than actual figures, etc., all red flags. That robustness is definitely something to invest in, whether you're looking to sell or not. Just because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And I always say, if somebody is going to plan an exit, you should start doing it 3 to 5 years in advance of it actually happening. the groups or the independent practices that look to sell very, very quickly also present a red flag from an investor point of view, because it's like, why and
what are you trying
what's
to get
the
out
rush?
of?
Exactly that. So well governed, well run, well planned, connected, data that's easily accessible, and goes above what a standard business would look for. All will create more value for you.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so 2 great builds there. Any other ones that spring to mind that you think would be sort of top of the list in terms of actionable steps?
Yeah, so more recently, from an Agilio point of view, we acquired Patient Plan Direct. That was the last acquisition. So when I joined Agilio, I gave them a list of businesses that we needed to acquire. Everything from Carrigan that looked at associate pay and automating associate pay through to Patient Plan Direct. And the reason was practices that can show predictable reoccurring revenue in their business are more valuable than those that don't.
Yep.
So if you're not a fully NHS practice, if you've got an element of private in there, that's great, because fee per item's higher margin. Everyone knows that. But if you've got private fee per item revenue that's then predictable and reoccurring, then it will add more value to your business overall. So Patient Plan Direct was an acquisition to help dental practices achieve that more easily. So originally it was, you could offer a plan. We all know that clinicians and practice staff don't want to sell. It's not a natural thing for a caregiver to do. So generally, the penetration of a plan within a private practice is less than 20%. Most of the time, around 15. It's relatively low. So you've got 75-80% of value potential in the rest of your patient base if you're fully private.
Yep.
So what I wanted to do was, or what we wanted to do, was to have a solution that can help affect that automatically. So we bought Prav Solanki's business, The Fresh UK, digital marketing, experts in dental digital marketing and what they do. We then acquired Dengro, CRM, proven in the marketplace, came from Sandeep and the MySmile network. So again, proven. Patient Plan Direct, a real challenger to the top 2 plan providers in the UK, and did things differently. So they're all well and good, but when you connect them together, they become really, really powerful. So you've got one end that can attract new patients, but the right patients to your business. So the ones that are going to be reoccurring and give you a higher average value per patient. You've got Dengro that helps with the conversion within your business. So tracking the spend that you're making to get new patients, the conversion of them within your business, and then Patient Plan Direct that can then bolt on and say, we want your patients to be reoccurring, so we're here ready. So when you connect them together, and what we've been building with AI, which we haven't rushed into, and we still haven't gone to market with any AI solutions yet, because I think AI should be considered, not forced. Especially in the type of regulatory environment that we're in. So the agentic AI we've developed will now continuously look at your patient base, model who your ideal patients are, from data from your PMS, et cetera, and then start to look at ones that aren't giving you value at that point in time, and reach out to them and converse with them automatically, to offer it may be a cosmetic solution if they're an inactive patient, to try and reactivate them, or it'll offer them a plan if they've had a certain number of procedures and there's potential of them leaving for whatever reason. So there's a number of things that we've done, and we're currently in beta with it now, and we've got a number of practices that are seeing huge sways in plan uptake as a result of practice staff not having to be the conduit for that anymore.
So the way that's working is that, let's say a patient's had an implant and they've finished the treatment, they've not gone onto a plan, which is my standard conversation. When we finish that, I'll give them the classic analogy of a car and say, you've just bought a nice car. If you drive it like a rally car driver, you never take it for a service or an MOT. It's going to break down pretty quick.
Yes.
You take it for a regular service and an MOT, it's going to last much longer.
Yeah.
Therefore, we recommend you seeing the hygienist, seeing the dentist on a regular basis. We have a plan designed just for this for you.
Yeah.
You're taking that conversation, which obviously should still happen person to person, ideally.
Yeah, it should.
But oftentimes won't be unless it's the practice principle. and you're automating the reactivation with agentic AI, trawling through your patient base, finding those individuals, and then self-referring itself to make a recommendation to them via digital means, via email.
Yeah, so
sort of
email, WhatsApp. We're not at the voice stage yet, but it will end
Something
up
like Linda would be able
exactly,
to do that as well.
Exactly.
Though, yeah.
So, but yeah, all communication channels using the the facets from each of our acquired sources. So, the fresh from a marketing point of view, tone of voice is specific to the practice as opposed to generic. Branding is specific to the practice, not generic or not from Agilio. And conversion techniques that have made Dengro so popular. And then the ability to create plans that are specific to that individual practice, so it's not cookie cutter, membership plans.
Which is the benefit of Practice Plan Direct, is that it's not a generic. We won't use their names, but the names of the big brands. It's actually specific to the practice itself.
Yeah. So that's what they offer. That's their uniqueness. And we're using all of that to bring this together. And I believe that will be a game changer.
It's smart, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And practices that I've worked with, or groups that I've worked with, where they've got 40,000 inactive patients on their list. If you can convert 5-10% of that, it's significant in value. So,
well, I mean, one of our standard protocols that we have in the practice is reactivation of patients that are due their checkups that haven't been in.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons I was chatting with India from Linda, because I know that she has an outbound call service based on that.
She does.
And at the moment, it's done completely manually by my team every single day.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work, and you'll have certain individuals that are amazing at it.
Yeah.
And you have certain individuals who aren't quite as strong at it.
Yeah.
And that sort of variability, as you say, you can keep an eye on that when it's your one location. But if you're working on anything more than that, really, it's going to be very difficult for you to keep a track on. Everyone can say it's being done, but at what level and so
what
on.
Success at the end of it as well,
which is the most important thing.
And to the point that you've just made, Simon, what could those guys be doing if they're not having to do that?
Well, it's quite a soulless task as well, I think, unless you're the sort of individual that really thrives on. It's kind of a bit call center, Unless you're the sort of person that really thrives on the conversation and the self competition of. I mean, we've made it a competition in our practice to see how many patients people can get in and stuff. But it's it can be quite challenging, I know, especially for someone who doesn't really like being on the phone and that sort of thing.
And if you can model out the success that your team have had in the past. So you can look at the ones that they've reactivated and say, is there any commonality from their profile? Load that into the AI, and it will then say, well, these ones we're going to deal with. The other ones need a human touch. You could start to really develop strategies that frees up your own staff to do other things like patient care type stuff.
Yeah. Where the human touch actually is just so necessary.
And I'm one of the worst. I would rather respond to an agent now than I would do a person half the time, just because that it's going to be done
My wife
quicker.
hates going on the phone.
Yeah.
If anyone needs to be called, she's like, can you call this person? I'm like, why can't you do it?
Yeah.
I don't like speaking on the phone.
Exactly.
Whereas I love speaking on the phone. I'll have a nice chat with anyone.
Yeah.
And so, there's different types of people in that regard, aren't there?
But you can ask for the preference. So when a new patient registers, how do you want us to converse with you? Is it WhatsApp only? Is it email? Is it a combination? And then really create agents or solutions that appeal to that individual. And you're more likely to get success by doing that than if you blanket and you're very generic in the approach. Because as you said, and my wife's the same, she WhatsApps everybody. I don't think she picks up her phone's on silent most of the time, but she's constantly WhatsApping people. So that would be her preferred style.
As a modern cosmetic dentist, I'm always looking for tools, techniques, and technologies that I can bring into my practice to have a meaningful impact on my patients' oral health. One area that I found frustrating to deal with up until now is early carious lesions. We've always had to monitor them, and inevitably in many patients, it ends up with them needing a filling, and we've really not had a great tool to deal with this. That is until now. What we've recently implemented is Curodont Repair from Valuations. It's a biomimetic peptide technology that can actually arrest or even reverse early areas of decay, meaning that patients don't need to have that filling that they really don't want. It's incredibly easy to apply and it's suitable for all age groups. So if you'd like to look at Vivardis as an option for minimally invasive care in your clinic, then go to www.professional.vivardis.com/contact point. That's professional.vivardis.com/contact point for 10% off your first case.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder how many other people feel the same way that I do when I hear about something like this. It's obviously excitement in terms of, wow, that this would clearly have a demonstrative impact on the stability of my business in terms of recurrence of patient attendance and that sort of thing. And therefore, obviously, as we were discussing, the knock on to the enterprise value of the business that you've built.
Yeah.
I think the counter to that in terms of anxiety or concern is, with the speed at which technology is developing at the moment, it's really challenging for you and for your team, I think, to implement, and then for that implementation to still be the best thing for the business.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, I'm obviously very front and center in terms of technology. I'm always looking at whatever the latest tech is. I love it. I'm passionate about it. I'm curious about it. And that means that I tend to be on the cutting edge of the new thing that comes out.
Yeah.
Care Stack, for example, I was one of the first practices to have that as an AI-driven PMS. Voice Stack, I was one of the first people to have. 3D printing, milling, scanners, AI diagnostics, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with that as the business leader is oftentimes you'll invest in the setup of all of that tech, and either it won't get utilized, or something newer and better will come along, and then you'll wish that you were with that one. And it's knowing when to jump ship and when not to that I think it's quite challenging. I mean, we've just moved our social media agency relatively recently. What you're describing sounds amazing. And so I'm now like internally, I'm just going to voice again, as you were describing earlier, fully authentically and without any filter at all. I'm now internally thinking, oh God, this sounds exactly what I need.
Yeah.
Am I now going to have to completely reset up my social media agency again? Because that's one of my least favorite things to do in the world. Trying to connect people to my Facebook accounts is horrible.
Yeah.
So how do you make me feel better about that?
Yeah, I mean,
purely selfishly.
No, it's fine. It's fine. And in one regard, you're a salesperson's dream. I face this all the time, and it's common in dentistry where owners of practices and groups are looking for the newest, easiest, best way of doing things.
It's competitive edge as well, right?
It is, and I think the market's actually playing you to some regard. Adoption is one of the hardest things in software. So I've sold to groups a solution. I've sold it personally, and the demos have gone really well. The engagement has been there. We get to a deal, and there's some haggling on the deal, which is standard process these days, and the feeling is good. So internally, we're made up. We've got a new logo, on our books, and everybody's super excited about helping that group or practice adopt Agilio. But then when you come to implement it, the engagement from the customer suddenly wanes a little bit because they've got day jobs. And if you take a HR implementation as an example, if you're migrating from one HR platform to another, even if you can create ingestion channels to suck a lot of the data in, you've still got to check it because it's personal data, it's GDPR, et cetera. There's still an element of checks and balances that needs to be done to do that. And when that excitement starts to wane because it goes more into, okay, now we've got to do a bit of work, and that starts to cause pressure on the software provider. But then when you get down the line, if the adoption isn't there, and the adoption can't be driven by the software alone, the adoption's got to be driven by the leadership of the organization. What happens is it's the software's fault. So, and I've been into meetings countless times where the leadership teams have said they don't like it, they don't want to use it. We found another solution, so we're going to move on to that one. And my answer is always the same: can you hand on heart say that the engagement from an implementation point of view and the integration of it into your daily life has been number one priority for you? And the answer is generally no. And I'm like, well, it's going to happen again. And we've had groups that have left us to go to one of our competitors, and I'm all for competition. I think competition drives improvement. And I would never slate any of our competitors. If someone said they were going to another, I would always endorse it. I would always hope that they'd come back because they don't find it as rich as ours. But I would, and I have wished people well and seen them move on to another solution. We have had people come back. Equally, we've had people that have stayed. Every dental practice operates differently, and that's both fortunate and unfortunate. So it's unfortunate for me because I want to create a software solution that's off the shelf, cookie cutter. Everybody does it in the same way. Yeah. Exactly. The reality of UK dentistry, and if you compare it to North American dentistry where they code in the same way, it's all insurance driven. It just means that we're in a little bit of Wild West. And we'll just circle back to valuations for an example for a second. I used to use the analogy: two practices on a high street that look identical outside. Would you value them based on their location, their size, everything on paper? Would you value them the same? And the answer is generally, yeah, you would think so. But as soon as you open that door, everything behind that front door can be different. The way that they govern, the way that they operate, the systems that they use, the consumables that they use for the patients, the experience that they give can be wildly different. And that can mean one practice can be significantly higher value than the one next door to it. And that's difficult for any provider. So what we've got to do is create shiny toys for you to say, I want that one. And that's good because it creates innovation. So we're constantly trying to innovate to not be caught up by our competitors, to improve outcomes, and demonstrate outcomes. Because I think if I could say to you, Simon, here's a piece of software that's going to deliver guaranteed X outcome, you're more likely to buy it than if I said it's going to generally improve your operational process by 5%, because that's a woolly solution. Proposition. Exactly. And Agilio's trying to get to that guaranteed outcome. Yeah. So you don't have that shiny new toy syndrome that happens anymore, because the outcomes that we said we will deliver are being delivered. And if they're not, that's the time when you start to look for something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, implementation, I think, across the board, whether it be a scanner, a milling unit, a printer, the software, the social media agency, the videographer, is hard. Probably the hardest thing, right? In terms of activations that the leader of the industry, the leader of the business needs to carry out.
And I think you touched on using CareStack, and I really rate CareStack as a PMS. I'm pretty agnostic from a PMS point of view. I worked at Henry Schein for a number of years, so obviously I was a part of that. But they've all got their own advantages and disadvantages, I think, in the main. But I think one of the kind of early day struggles that CareStack had was that switch and how they could deliver a change from another to CareStack with the least amount of impact. Friction. Yeah. And I know Adrian really well. We were at the Dental Times Owners Club last week together, and you kind of talk about these things, and it's come on leaps and bounds. And I think choice should be given to a clinician and the way that they operate their business. But it's always going to be a hard slog to change from one system to the other. And for me, I think that the only way that you should do that is that it's not delivering the value that you want it to do anymore, or it's become limited in its scope, i.e. it can't connect into another solution, it can't join something up. If they don't have open APIs, etc., to link in, for me that's more of a red flag.
It's a deal breaker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I guess it's up to the clinicians and the owners to actually have that conversation as to whether or not this thing can connect with other.
Yeah, and if you take DSOs that say like clinical freedom, but it's clinical freedom as long as you buy it off this list. So from a software point of view, I do think that they should have an influence So we go back to associates and associates being happy. Forcing a system change on an associate is probably going to make them grumpy. Having them involved in the decision because it's going to drive better outcomes for them and the business overall. You're probably going to have better engagement, a better integration, and a better adoption overall.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's why we have regular dentist meetings with our clinicians at the practice. So that, I mean, they were actually all around here last night, and we were talking about the fact we're about to install Diagnocat, AI overlay radiographics in our practice, getting them excited about it, finding out any concerns. One of the clinicians had experience with it before. They said it was really good. We had tried another provider previously where we had it very early on, but it wasn't implemented. So learning from that. So I think you're completely right. Having your clinicians on board as a principal is just so important.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so the three things there then: key man risk. Make sure you've dealt with that. The connective tissue between the data, everything outside of the standard PMS and accountancy. Make sure that you've got quantifiable metrics on that point. And then the third one, to go back to where we started that conversation, was recurring revenue in essence. Stickiness of your customer is going to give KG investors or acquirers more confidence that the revenue that they're in essence buying from you is going to be there for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, because it's guaranteed. So if you can guarantee, especially on a pure fee per item basis, if you can guarantee the revenue's coming in, regardless of whether a patient turns up or not, you want them to turn up. But if they don't, they're still going to, it's like my gym membership. You can see I go to the gym every day. I still pay for it, whether I'm there or not. It just gives that sense of comfort from an investment point of view. And similarly from a property perspective, a freehold is always more valuable than a leasehold, because if the business fails, you've got the freehold to fall back on. So for me, again, I said, if you can buy the freehold, get the freehold.
So that's a recommendation that you give to practice owners?
Yeah, well, so somebody looking to so if somebody's more from a squat point of view, if they're talking about leasehold or freehold,
right?
But just generally, if you've got the option to buy the building that you're in, buy it. Just because it gives a safety net from an investment point of view. If you're looking to sell and you're selling the freehold, if the business fails, the investors have still got the freehold that they can go and sell on.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, really good. And you mentioned earlier on the sort of 15 to 20% of the patient base being on a plan type structure. As the standard, what would good look like in terms of that percentage?
So practices that have adopted plans. So there's an Agilio. So Agilio already had a membership plan before we acquired Patient Plan Direct, called iPlan. It used to be Code Plan when Paul Mendelsohn, it was part of Paul Mendelssohn's code business. And there's one specific practice that's our longest plan customer. That's got nearly 6,000 patients on a plan now. So their penetration's probably about 63%. For me, that is fantastic. What that business has managed to affect, and it wasn't overnight, and we've not even given them agentic solutions yet. So hopefully we're going to be able to further increase that for them. But they just made a decision that good should be over half year base.
Half.
So if you can get half of your fee per item base on a plan, and I'm not talking about a full plan of 2 checkups, I'm talking about it could just be a hygiene plan. So you could offer a £10 a month hygiene plan or whatever, depending on your own pricing.
Reduce the boundary, reduce the price per entry somewhat.
And at the Dentistry show, PPD are releasing a report that we've been compiling over the last couple of months. That's kind of going to talk about these types of things and really show practice owners the impact that having somebody on a plan can have longer term on their business. So you're more likely for them to take additional treatments. That's proven. Somebody that's paying you regularly, if they propose the cosmetic treatment, there's a higher conversion rate of that. More likely to secure family as well. If one person's on a plan and they have kids, then they're going to register the kids with you. And stickiness factor, churn rates, they're all a lot lower. So we're trying to kind of lift the lid on what membership plans, what impact membership plans can have on your business, because they've been kind of understood, but quite loosely. But the driver of them is a lot more significant than people realize. And I remember talking to Prav Solanki about why we're acquiring PPD, and he's been a practice owner, he's been an operator, and he actually didn't think that, at the time I was saying to him, somebody with a well-penetrated plan will probably get 1 to 2 times higher multiple than one that didn't. That's taking into account other factors. So I am always going to caveat that with, don't come at me if you don't get an extra turn or two.
You promised me.
Yeah, exactly. Just because they watch me on a podcast sometimes, they're like, that guy told me that I was going to get it. There's always caveats to that. But the vein that I was going through was predictable revenue will allow higher investments into your business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same with Parlour. We have a subscription-based structure for our customers. And you get an increased valuation based on that as well. Yeah. It's sort of standard business economics, isn't it, really?
100%.
Really, really interesting and really helpful, I think. I think one of the challenges, and I was having this very conversation with my dental team last night, is all of the things you've just described in terms of recurring revenue are music to the ears of the practice owner.
Yeah.
Having good language and with that good data to back up your position to explain why it's of benefit to your associates, I think is the challenge.
Yeah.
It sounds really exciting, this report that you're going to be giving, if it does talk to that at all.
Yeah, and I completely agree that trying to explain why. So I've another example. So when I was doing practice valuations, so we acquired Medi Estates, that's now Henry Schein Practice Transitions. Well, I acquired that while I was at Henry Schein, and then led that business for 18 months. So I didn't include that in my. It's kind of bundled up in the Henry Schein. But it was part of the Henry Schein responsibility. So I was on the buy and the sell side of it. And when we were valuing practices, one of the things that we used to say quite regularly is you might need to change the percentages you pay your associates, because it's either it's too high or too low. And it struck fear in the owners' eyes, because they were like, if I do that, it's either going to mean that my profit is lessened if I'm having to increase it.
Or they're all going to leave.
Yeah, or they're all going to leave. So I completely appreciate that any change is hard, because you're reliant on a number of people that are generally self-employed and have choice of whether they work with you or go down the road and work with somebody else. So you're trying to do everything you can to keep them engaged and happy and willing to stay at your practice, but equally. You've got to look at what's going to make a difference to you as a business owner, and sometimes decisions are tough. And I've been in businesses where we've had to let people go, we've had to restructure, we've had to do all different types of stuff, and I hate that part of my roles.
Me too.
Yeah, exactly. It is the hardest part of it, to deliver bad news, but you've got to do it. It's just par for the course. Sometimes you've got to make tough decisions. And it can be really easy to say, well, we're okay the way that we are. But if you're thinking about them anyway, that kind of shows in your subconscious that that's not what you believe. You're looking, subconsciously, you're looking to improve. And if there's a bad decision that needs to be made to get to that improvement, it's whether you're brave enough to kind of take that leap or not.
Yeah.
Using external advisors is always helpful. I think that having somebody that you can bounce these things off and really talk to. And I know you said you're using a business coach yourself, Joe. I think that's really invaluable for a practice owner.
Hugely, yeah.
And especially in a clinical nature where the business side of dentistry is normally restricted to a couple of hours over the whole time that you're training to be a dentist.
I don't think there was any when I was there.
Okay. And I've been to Liverpool University, and whilst I was at Henry Schein, we did a collaboration with them, and I would go and talk to them for 4 hours on the business of dentistry. It was always on a Saturday morning. Most of them were hungover. They really didn't care that I was there or not. But at least I was trying to. I wanted to do something to kind of just improve it, even if it was a little thing. It was never going to be, a significant change in the way that these guys thought. But what I tried to do with them was provoke some thoughts in them. So I used to start by saying, so you all want to be dentists. How many of you want to be a dentist because your parents are? And some hands would go up. And how many of you want to be a dentist because you think you're going to drive a sports car and live in a big house? And some hands would go up. And I'd be like, how many of you want to be a dentist because you want to deliver excellent patient care? Oh yeah, that as well.
Number 3.
Yeah. So everything I tried to do was just literally to provoke thoughts, and it was around the business of dentistry. How many want to own your own practice? How many want to be an associate? And I kind of went into it with that vein, but completely underinvested part of dentistry, the business side, to having an external coach that understands that side.
Yeah.
Not better than you, but can just give you different thoughts and perspectives on it. It's hugely valuable.
It's been so powerful for Megan and I. I mean, we sit in this room and we'll be here for 9 hours, every 6 to 8 weeks or so, and it will fly by. But I sort of pride myself on knowing a huge amount on business. Obviously, I've run a startup.
Yeah.
But even before that, I've always been so passionate about dental practice, dental business, all that sort of thing. But I'm constantly surprised at the sort of, I think there's just so much nuance that goes into it.
Yeah.
And there's so many cogs and little levers that you can pull that can make such a demonstrative business. And without that experience of, like in your circumstance where you've seen 120 of these businesses, what works, what doesn't work. Yeah. There's so many different ways for you to spend your operating profit and for it to generate nothing.
Yeah.
It's really challenging. And I think dental practice owners should probably be kinder to themselves in terms of how they get on.
Yeah.
And it's not a surprise that so many of them are burnt out and stressed because they've got no idea what they're doing.
No.
They're literally trying to build the plane as they are falling from the sky.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
Yeah.
Especially in the current economic climate that we work within.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's like flying a plane without the instruments needed to fly that plane. That's the kind of analogy that it's used in that respect. And burnout is real. And I face burnout as a professional myself, and I don't even have the pressure of being in a small room with my hand in someone's mouth all day whilst trying to figure out what's going on in my business and what do I need to change and how can I do this and is everybody happy? So the pressure that a clinician must be under, I can't comprehend. So if somebody that's not in that situation can feel burnout in this industry, the pressure must be insurmountable on somebody that's then got the clinical side to deliver as well.
Well, it's context switching as well. I think that's always where a huge amount of energy is burnt and it's not given the importance that it should be, because it's very difficult doing a surgery, coming out, oh, can I just grab you? We need to sign this. This person's not happy. This patient's complained. We need to do the implementation of this new software.
Yeah.
And it's
chief cook and bottle washer
is
the phrase
very challenging. Yeah, it really is.
I don't envy you. I've never owned a dental practice. I've been asked a few times why not. And I would have a different view if I did than you, just because I don't have that clinical side. So I do think we're talking about, you talk about the future of dentistry. I do think, especially in a group situation, there'll be a separation of the clinical governance versus the operational governance, because when you try and run them together, there's always going to be conflict and clash. And I think to ease that burnout situation, having that independently looked at is probably a way of easing that.
So a CDO and a COO.
Yeah.
At what stage do you think is the right time to implement that division?
That's a good question. As a group's growing, I mean, I think that you could always, no matter what the size of your very small practices, you wouldn't. You would be the CDO and the CEO in essence.
Well, my wife and I'm definitely the CDO. She's definitely the COO. So
yeah,
that works well.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no reason why you can't have that focus. But when you get to 5, 10, that's when you're going to start needing somebody to really support you on one side or the other. And I talk to group owners that are still full-time clinicians, and they've got 3 practices now. And it's like, how can you do both? Well, I have to do it in the evening, or I have to do it at weekends. And but what about your evening and weekends?
What about your exercise, your relationships?
Exactly, mental health, the whole lot of it. So really, really difficult. If dentistry was easy, everyone would be doing it. It's so nuanced. That I don't think we'll ever get to a place where there's just one generic standard of how to do things. But that's good for people like me that want to go in and help different organizations do, help them achieve what their goals are, and try and use experience. And when we talked about 120 dental practices, I probably saw over 1,000 to get to 120.
Yeah.
And the rest of them, they're not the right practices for whatever reason. I'm not saying there's good or bad, but they just don't fit the profile that we were looking for at that time. And it does give you a view of you can always walk in and sense whether a practice is a good practice or not. And now, even when I go to my own dentist, I'm looking for those same things. And I won't tell you who my dentist is because I don't think it's fair on them. But they are a good dentist overall.
I'm sure.
yeah. But you do go in and you do kind of look around and you kind of trying to like sense things and feel things. And I've just taken my son for orthodontic treatment, and I've done exactly the same thing. I've walked into that practice and thought, there's no information on plans. There's not this. There's not that. So I'm being hypercritical of that business, but that's just kind of
the way your brain works.
Yeah, now it does after seeing so many of them.
I need you to come to my practice then.
Yeah,
have a little sniff around. I mean, let's talk more about the future then. Obviously, you mentioned earlier on that the landscape in terms of acquisitions back in certainly sort of 21, 22 was very, very hot. Lots of my fellow BACD colleagues sold their practices at that time to Dentex at the time and Portman as well. Obviously, since then, EBITDA multiples have dropped significantly. Where are we now? I'm not really in the scene. I'm not looking to sell my practice. Yeah. But you mentioned earlier that we are sort of seeing a slight pickup in terms of acquisitions?
Yeah, and I'm going to be largely unpopular with the guys that transition businesses for a living, who do say that valuations are an all-time high. They're not.
And they're saying that right now, are they?
Yeah, so you see the reports coming out, etc., that dentistry's never been better, and valuations that are high. The mix of acquirers changed, and you do get a higher multiple for an associate-led practice generally than you will do from a corporate, because the risk profile is different. And even from a lending perspective, the risk profile is different. So a bank would be more lenient and give you a 90% loan to value if you can satisfy certain requirements. Whereas private equity are looking for a number of factors: IRR, money on money, the returns that they're going to get over a 3, 5, 7 year period. So they're a little bit more risk adverse. So generally, the industry's buoyant again. And I think that's good. People are looking to sell. There's people that want to buy. And the mix is slightly different to what it was. It's not corporate heavy anymore. There's a good blend of associates buying out principals, entrepreneurial dentists that want to grow small groups. That's all kind of become more prevalent, whilst the DSOs have been absent from the marketplace. So I think that's positive, because it did get to a point where we were kind of controlling valuations, and I don't think corporate should control valuation types within an industry.
Yeah, you want competitive tension,
exactly.
Don't you? I think that's good for everyone. It's fairer.
Yeah.
Where are we at now in terms of ballpark EBITDA multiples?
Yeah, so
the classic question.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's a really difficult one because there's so many factors that are taken into account, like where it is it prime, is it a dental desert, etc., etc. They all have influences. The mix of dentistry has an influence. It used to be everybody wanted NHS contracts. That's not so prevalent anymore, and I think that will continue. Personally, I think that
to decline in popularity.
Yeah, and it's the reason why the CMA have come in, because 68% growth in private dentistry over the last period. It shows that there's a shift change happening. And when the shift change has happened, and I remember COVID being at Portman, and speaking to the CDO at the time. And her governing dental practices to shut down, but her jurisdiction wasn't over private practices; it was over the NHS. So the more it shifts to private dentistry, the less control the regulators have. I mean, CQC is obviously still there, and there was governance from that point of view. But in terms of the CDO, my understanding of that situation is her remit was to the Department of Health, which is NHS dentistry.
Focused, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's why you're seeing things like the CMA coming in now, because the shift to more not unregulated dentistry, that's a very strong word, but less governed, I guess, from
less controlled.
Yeah, exactly. Frightens people.
Yeah, well, it frightens the government.
Yeah, exactly. So So,
but why should it? Because the market, I don't really understand. Surely the market will decide.
Yeah, it will.
It's not like there's a monopoly controlling pricing of dental procedures.
Yeah.
If you overprice yourself in terms of the procedure that you're having carried out, then the market will tell you, surely.
Yeah, it will do.
And some people will go at the bottom of the market, some people will go at the top of the market, and then the large majority will be in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be so as a consumer, it's going to be my desire for the treatment and my affordability of it, and they're going to determine whether I actually take it or not, regardless of what the price is.
Yeah,
I'm going to say it's too expensive, not doing it, or it's fine, I'm going to pay it.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that it's overpriced.
Says who?
Yeah, exactly.
Who decides value?
For me, the CMA is coming in for one main reason, and that is the veterinary sector was consolidated
aggressively.
Rapidly.
Yeah,
and the ownership structure was not always visible. So when you thought you were going to a independent vet, and it wasn't, it was part of a large group, and then pricing transparency. Well, and I know this, I'm a dog owner. So you go in and get these bills from a vet, and you're kind of like, what's that for?
Yeah.
And that transparency needs to be, I think it needs to be borne through. So
you're almost being strong-armed into making the purchase. You don't really have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, and especially because if you take an animal, if an animal's not good or is in pain, you'll do anything to fix that. You'd probably spend more on your pet than you will on your own kids.
Your teeth.
No, I would. Yeah. Well, I got my teeth done just a year or so ago, but I would have got my dog's teeth done 10 times over if I needed to. So you spend more, and when the government's kind of looked at this and thought, okay, so ownership isn't transparent, pricing structure isn't always transparent, and is consent really there, or is it your animal's not well or needs this done? Yeah, here's the price, take it or leave it.
Yeah,
and most of the time,
your dog dies or you pay this bill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they're looking at that. Care homes was looked at in the same way, and I did an article on. This isn't about dentistry. This is about consolidated markets. So it's
just a standard thing.
Yeah, it's where private equity are involved and they're rolling up. The government has now thought, okay, we need to take a look at this.
So what happened in those other markets before or after the CMA came in?
So corporate ownership needs to be disclosed in dentistry. So the groups are going to have to disclose.
Oh, that's happened. That's
come out of it. So that'll be. I mean, groups can do that. They can swallow that cost and rebrand.
How do they have to display it?
So I don't think that's fully borne through. So the report that came out in March basically said that they're going to have to disclose, but then there's a period of time for implementation, and there'll be a lot of consultation about what that actually means.
Yeah.
And for me, it would mean that the website needs to show that it's under corporate ownership. There needs to be something within the branding or the look and feel to identify that it's corporately owned, and that will change. That will change a lot of veterinary practices, because right now they're kind of left as independent looking. Price and transparency would mean that they need to give a breakdown of a treatment as opposed to a rolled up cost.
Right.
So the human element of it, the manual side of it, the labor side of it. Then any pharmaceuticals, any drugs that have been.
Yeah, because that was a big issue with the veterinary, wasn't it? They were throwing in a load of drugs.
Yeah, and the margins on those were super high.
Right. Interesting.
And because it was all wrapped up, you couldn't really say, that actually looks really high. And as a consumer, I wouldn't know if a drug that I was giving my dog was overpriced or not anyway.
No idea, yeah.
But I think it's just about that spirit of transparency that you can take a look and understand it a little bit more. Website pricing and consent, they were the kind of main things that came out of the veterinary study. And I think that 90% of them will come out in the dental study. Plans did come out. So they talked about a transparency of a plan. So I pay for my dog monthly, and I get a text message every now and again saying you need to come and pick up some worming tablets and tick and flea tablets, etc. And you're meant to get other benefits. I don't fully understand what those other benefits are. And what they're saying is if somebody takes a membership plan in a veterinary practice, it needs to be fully disclosed what they're paying for. So yeah, you get your worming, yeah, you get this, but also you get 20% off other treatments, and you get this, that, and the other. That all has to be clear, transparent, and communicated. Yeah. So for membership plans in dentistry, if you offer a plan, it needs to be fully disclosed and consented to what that person's going to pay for, and how they should receive that treatment.
Interesting. Very interesting. I'm not going to let you get away without answering the question on the EBITDA multiple. So where are we at in ballpark figures on that right now?
I thought that I'd suitably swerve that.
Was it lovely information afterwards?
Yeah, I was trying to be a politician.
People want to know.
No, I know, and I will get hung, drawn, and quartered for this. I know I will.
Dated,
yeah, absolutely. So if anyone's watching this from one of the practice brokerage firms, then always caveats to everything that I say.
Andy promised me I'd get this multiple.
Exactly. I think that if you're looking between a 6 and 7x multiple for a business right now, you're doing well. Right. I think anything above a 7, you need to be an exceptional business. Mm-hmm. I am going to plug the initiative that I'll launch later on this year, because that operational maturity index will determine the value that I think practices will get. Mm-hmm. So if it's rated 1 to 5, 3 being the kind of you're a well-run, governed, operational, mature business, where the standard would be, and you could say, if you're a 3, this is the kind of multiple that you're going to expect for your business. A 5 should be expecting a lot more. Mm-hmm. And because you're demonstrating your operational maturity to an independent, not adjudicator, an independent body as such, not a government or regulatory body who can...
a framework
that
standardizes it.
Exactly. It will just change the whole dynamic of practice valuations. So 5 to 6, could become a 7.5 to 8. It could become a 9 to a 10. Mm-hmm. Right now, I think it's still largely blended out at, if I was in a DSO right now, I'd probably be looking to lean towards the 5x mark. Just because of the cost of funds, right now, and the volatility of interest rates. If you were an independent practice, you'd look at the higher end. If you were selling to an independent, you'd look for a higher end, just because money's easier to come by.
Interesting. And do you think I was listening to an American dental podcast recently, and they were talking about how there's less and less new grads coming out wanting to own their own practices. Yeah. And that's obviously feeding into the consolidation of the market over there. Yeah. Corporate bodies are also, or corporate groups are also being, I think, much more, they've sort of dispelled the myths that working at a corporate is bad, and they've actually made it culturally, I think, a much better place to work. Yeah. Is my interpretation. I don't know enough about it to be able to say that as a fact. Do you think the same thing's happening in the UK? Do you think less grads are coming out wanting to own their own practice?
Yeah, so I think the mix between male and female dentists is having an influence anyway. So we are seeing a shift of more female dentists coming through. It used to traditionally be quite male dominated. Mm-hmm. And that will naturally, organically have an influence on what people want to do. Studies have shown that female dentists want more flexibility. They would work different types of shift patterns. It's not traditional, just especially if they're planning or have a family. And that will have a bearing on access to dentistry as well. So I'm now seeing dental groups open 7 days a week. And I think that's great. I know operationally it's a bit of a nightmare, and, shutting it at a certain set hour and, closing at the weekend is generally the norm of what dental practices do. But my wife's a teacher, and she can't get the time out of school to go to a dental practice that shuts at 5 o'clock, because she's generally in school till 4:45 every night. It's not a 3 o'clock finish anymore. Yeah. So I think that the people coming through, so there are less people coming through overall. That was the question. So I believe that the numbers haven't significantly dropped. It's not fallen off a cliff, but there is a lower number of graduates coming through than there was prior. Mm-hmm. Equally, there's not as many overseas entrants coming in, since Brexit. We know that that's a big part of the workforce challenge in dentistry, which I think the professional bodies are doing a good job at lobbying to get that changed, and there's been some recent developments in that, which is great. Yeah. I do think that more female dentists coming through will allow dental practices to operate in different ways now. But I do think practice owners need to be cognizant of the fact that as we get into this more consumerized phase of dentistry, where the expectation is higher, that includes accessibility as well. So the patient's experience, can you book an appointment outside of your general working day or at a weekend, may determine whether you lose a patient or not. And I think if somebody's looking for an added advantage over a concentrated area where there is competition, that will probably win out. If you search dentists in Chester that are open on Saturdays, that will determine whether somebody stays with you or leaves leaves you if that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And what do you think? Obviously, the focus of the podcast is very much on the next 10 years.
Yeah.
You mentioned AI earlier. You mentioned agentic AI. I'm obsessed with Claude at the moment and looking at all the different ways that I can utilize AI across my various businesses. What impact do you think AI and robotics, which is also coming in pretty quickly now,
it is
going to have specifically on practice valuations or group valuations? Is this something that you think that DSOs and corporate groups are thinking about in terms of the values they're putting on these businesses? My view is that it's going to hugely increase the profitability of these locations, because efficiencies like the ones you've just described, in terms of what Agilio is doing, of being able to go through all of the data within a practice and get you to an actionable outcome, extrapolate and compound that up across every different part of your business, it's going to be a different landscape in 5 years' time, and it's only going to be more profitable, unfortunately, most likely with a lower headcount. But what's your view on that?
Yeah, so AI's good at automating repetitive tasks. I think that's the kind of first thing. If it's not something that is a general repetitive task, then AI is not particularly great at it now. That will evolve in the next 5 years as things do progress. Also obsessed with Claude. My wife and kids think Claude's someone I'm having an affair with, rather than so, because I'm constantly talking about Claude, because it's such a great tool for research and just amazing. For me personally, I think it's opened up a whole new thought process in me, because you can just explore things. I mean, I don't believe everything it tells me. I think that's the one. And we always talk about human in the loop, and I always think that even in dentistry, human in the loop is going to have to be there. Robotics, I've been watching with interest. I personally wouldn't trust a robotic arm in my mouth, and because there's an unpredictable nature of humans, and can AI predict whether I would go into anaphylactic shock, or I've got a fear of, I don't know, drills as an example. And if something happened to me, how would that react? I'm still not convinced.
How would a human react, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, exactly. But at least with a human, there's and this is just my personal feeling right now. At least with a human, there's a process that a human will go through. And whilst I think AI is getting there and will get there, I just don't believe it's there just yet. I think we've still got a way to go before dentistry is delivered by robots as opposed to individuals. But
I think I agree. I think there's quite a few implants being placed robotically in the States. And I think at the end of the day, it'll take the early adopters, the risk takers, that really believe in robotics to be the first individuals. But I would imagine once the stats coming out that say you can have this, it's going to take half the time, it's going to be half the cost, and it's double as predictable, which inevitably will be the outcome, right? When there's enough research backing that up, I think that's when your average consumer will say, okay, I'm ready now. Bring in the robot.
And if you look at CEREC as an example, I've been around for a while now. When Sirona were really pushing, CEREC and in practice milling and the adoption. I remember my own dentist saying, "Oh, I used it years ago and it's terrible. I'm never going to use it again." And it's going to be. I don't think it's 5 years. I actually think that's probably a 10 to 15 year timescale. Just because there will always be a resistance to change within dentistry, and dentistry seems to be one of those industries that is change adverse. Or slow.
In our country.
Definitely. Other markets, and I've been looking at Sweden just recently, and the way that they deliver dentistry in Sweden, and I think if we adopted that model, we'd become a lot more efficient anyway. More of that therapist-led clinical oversight type model. I think
that how they run it.
Yeah, definitely, and it runs really, really well. And I think that if we kind of were brave enough, if a government was brave enough to say, let's rip up the rule book. The NHS is on its way out. Whether people agree with that or not is indifferent to that. All the signs are there. If we suddenly started allowing people to take more insurance and move to that insurance-led model, we'd probably be better off anyway. If we were allowed therapists to do more with clinical oversight and and we would be more productive anyway. So for me, it's about changing the way model, and then AI on top of that as well, just changes the whole landscape. And I was on a call with Chris Barrow just yesterday, and we were talking about Patient Plan Direct, and he was asking about why we acquired it. But then he asked a similar question, and 15 years in the industry is a long time, but even 15 years is not a long time, if that makes sense, because of the way dentistry's been evolving over that period. It feels like it's new every day or every week or every month or every year. And for me now personally, the next 10 years are going to be the most exciting because of AI enhancements. I do think that someone's going to have to rip up the model in the UK and look at it again. No government has been brave enough to do it to the nth degree. And by the time they get there, the government's generally changed and somebody else comes in and so on and so forth. But it's going to be a really interesting time. The one point I'll make on AI is, and coming from a software business, you'd expect me to say that. If you haven't got organized data within your practice and you overlay AI onto it, it's basically going to amplify chaos. It's not going to deliver efficiencies in the way that people think it will, that you can throw Claude on it and it's going to organize all your data and you're going to suddenly, it's not. It's basically going to show you that you've got bad data and amplify that out. So the structure, going back to what our original point about structure, data, foundation, within the business, before you start investing in AI, and AI is coming quicker than boards can analyze the impact of it. There's constant stuff coming. You need to now buy this. You need to get scribe technology. You need to do X, Y, and Z. Need to pause. I would say pause and look at your own operation today. If you've got consistency in data and you've got methodology in your data and you've got an operational foundation that is robust, invest in AI. If you don't, invest in that first.
Yeah, it's really good advice. Actually, one of the first things I got Claude to do was my Dropbox was a complete mess with all my files, and I got Claude to go in, gave it various project titles, and bring it all in, and it was done in 2 minutes, and then my whole back end was really tidy.
Yeah, I did the same. So I use OneDrive a lot, and it was just dropping stuff in all the time, you know, and you just and then putting things on my desktop as opposed to filing them. And Claude solved the whole thing for me. And then like for my personal side, I do things outside of dentistry. I'm the chair of a grassroots football club. I'm the chair of our community council. I'm a governor in a school. I like to do stuff outside because I'm a busybody, my wife says. But I just think that it's different to what I do on a day-to-day basis. And what Claude's have been able to help me do, and similar to yourself that's got other business interests, I've not got the other business interests, but there are other interests where governance is a key part of what we do. And Claude's been able to help organize that side of things for me. So when agendas come in for council meetings, it can pull context for me and give me, when there's planning applications that come in, because the community council is responsible for approving or declining those things, it can give me background information and whether, so it's been, helps. It's an enabler for me to do more.
Well, certainly for this podcast. So I had a podcast before back in 2020, 2021. And the guest research was such a challenging part.
Yeah.
I was working in that podcast was very much non-dental, so I wouldn't always know deeply about the individual, which made it more challenging.
Yeah.
Nor would I necessarily have a deep understanding on the topic, which then also made it more difficult. But now the AI reports that I get, I've got it linked with my Google Calendar.
Yeah.
So I'll just say, do me reports in the style that I've asked for already for the podcast guest that I've got coming out this week.
Yeah,
that's all I need to do. But just to close the loop there, what you said earlier about a human always in the loop, I don't turn up with just that. Because it'd be a rubbish cookie cutter conversation. I make sure I then go in, do my own bit of research on top, add in my own individual commentary to it. And then I think if you can then take that and put that back into the Claude, then that's when you start to see a positive reinforcement loop for the output that you get out of it.
Yeah, and when I was on the train on the way here, it gave me a full breakdown of you and your interview style, and it looked at the podcast that you'd done before. And
I did it.
Yeah, definitely. So, and I think that's great. So otherwise I'd be sat there Googling you and trying to, and basically it's given me what would probably have taken me an hour and a half, 2 hours within seconds that I can consume in the 2 hour train ride. I was coming here. So if again, going back to it, if things are organized like Google searches, et cetera, it can pull that together and create something that's amplified and useful. If Google was all over the place, if there was no like structure to Google, etc., it would just give you garbage.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of, going back to it, it's the kind of key thing for me.
The foundational thing,
is.
which is the same for your practice as well, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that, given that dentistry, I think, is fairly AI resistant, what's the consensus from the institutional investors, the PE? Do they have that viewpoint as well? Because obviously a lot of industries are being disrupted, and it's very unknown what it's going to look like. Plumbers, electricians, aircon people, dentists, very human-to-human connection focused or very manual. Is that the way that PE looks at it as well?
So got some I work with PE now, so they're asking their investments to have an AI strategy.
Right.
So, but they're not governing what the AI strategy should be, because each investment's obviously different, and at different points in its development and life cycle, etc. But they're actively asking boards to create an AI strategy, which I think is really important. Then what they're going to do is use that to see the commonalities between their investments and where they can step in. If they could go and work with a company, an AI company, to create more of a holistic view, rather than independent practices. Individual investments going to work with AI companies on our own,
having a unified AI platform they can install across all of their assets.
And I've not been told this, but I do believe that if I was the private equity firm, I'd be thinking, how much cost can I take out of my investments by using AI? And you mentioned it before, ultimately, if tasks are going to be automated, it will probably have an impact on headcount. And if I was an investor, that's what I'd be looking at. I'd be like, what costs can you take out by implementing AI? I'm not saying that's what private equity are doing.
That's where my head goes as well. And I'd be looking to acquire as many new locations as I can do, while I'm getting it at a non-AI enhanced price point. And then look to add in the AI afterwards and upgrade it.
Exactly. So if you look at, you asked the question about 10 years time, would you walk into a practice in 10 years and there's no reception desk because you don't need it? If you look at Google, you can go into a Google supermarket now. There's no tills. It's basically, Amazon, sorry, not Google. You can basically go into an Amazon Fresh and not converse with an individual, take what you need and walk out.
But that's such a bad customer experience.
Yeah, no, it is. But, you could see where AI
at
could
the lower
go.
end of the market, for sure, that will work. Because you'll be able to offer your services at a lower price point.
I
think you're not going to find the Four Seasons without a front reception.
No.
Do you know what I mean? You're not going to find whatever it's called, Gordon Ramsay High or whatever his new Bishopsgate thing is, without a front of house. They're going to make sure they have the best front of house, who's got the most incredible customer service.
One of my favorite films ever is Minority Report.
Okay.
And that's the reason that there's a scene in there where they're kind of going through a supermarket and their eyes are scanned all the time, and individual advertisements are displayed. And I'm kind of thinking, is that the way it's going to end up here? Do you know that you walk into a practice and a virtual front of house person will greet you, know your history, be able to converse with you to a degree. I know.
Sounds depressing.
Yeah, it does. It does. But you can kind of see the possibility of that happening.
Yeah.
And the human touch, I believe, especially in a caregiving environment, human touch definitely needs to be there. It absolutely needs to be there. For all the reasons I said, I still think human emotions are erratic. And I'm not convinced that machines can cope with that yet. And whether or not they will in the future, I don't know. But you can see where it could go. And I think that we're all here to shape where it does go within dentistry. Everyone that's got an influence in outcomes, whether it's clinically or indirectly, should be pushing for what they believe is the right direction of travel. The ones that are passive, they're going to have to accept the way that dentistry is.
It is.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't resist something and this is the reason why I do what I do outside of dentistry now. I was a keyboard warrior in my community, complaining about lights out, bins not emptied, etc., etc. And then one day they were looking for counsellors, and I thought, I've just got to do it. I can't be a bystander anymore. Yeah, you've got to be participative.
Make some change.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, it's very action led. I think that's really important. You've got an event, a forum coming up.
Yes.
In September.
Yeah.
Dentistry Reimagined.
Yes.
Challenging conversations in dentistry.
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
So the first thing is it's changed, which I'm going to announce next week.
Okay.
Is
this an exclusive then?
Yeah, it is. It is exclusive.
This isn't coming out for a few months.
Okay. Right. Okay. Well, it will have changed by then. So Dentistry Reimagined. The reason I created it, I went to the board as part of my own transition and said that I want to do something in the industry that's different to the generic trade shows that we have today. And there's so many of them right now. From an Agilio point of view, I think we counted 16 that we're going to have to go to this year. And that creates a quandary for a business owner of, one, do we get FOMO if we're not there? And then secondly, cost, the time, the resource, etc., etc. And you're going to see the same people at a lot of these things. So are they really going to yield and return? So I wanted to do something that was very different in approach. One that was not governed by a commercial entity. So I was doing it independently and curating it independently from Agilio, and that was completely agreed for by the board. Agilio were going to sponsor it and be one of the sponsors, but I was going out for other sponsorship. It was definitely not pay for play, because I'm absolutely against pay for play in any industry. And I'm not saying that's prevalent in dentistry, but I wanted to make the point that the event that I was going to put on, just because you're going to pay me money, it doesn't mean you're going to create the agenda. And we wanted to bring in the capital investors into the same room as the operators. So it's all well and good me sitting here saying what would private equity do in dentistry, etc., etc. But I'm not the one investing in businesses within the dental space. So I wanted to bring them in the room. So there was conversations that were had from independents that were looking to either become a group or sell their practice to a group, groups that were looking to become larger groups or sell their groups to groups, and then bigger groups that wanted to either float or flip or whatever. And I just wanted to create a healthy tension in the room between all of these stakeholders. So it came out with people like understanding things differently than they do today. And that was great. And then Health Investor, who I'm not sure whether you're familiar with, Nexus Media.
Yes.
So they came to me and said, we really like the way you've positioned this event in dentistry. And we've got a summit that we run every year for healthcare and investors, legal, banks, and has nearly 2,000 attendees to it. And it has different streams for different healthcare verticals. And we've never had a dental one before. We've now entered the dental space. We're doing these Dental Times Owners Club. They've created.
Oh, that's them. Okay.
They've created a media distribution in dentistry called Dental Times that we're just starting to gain traction. Could we take Dentistry Reimagined from you and make that our dental stream? So after a lot of discussion and debate, I've decided that that's what we're going to do. So Dentistry Reimagined will now be the dental stream of the Healthcare Summit.
Okay.
Which is in, it's actually the same week in September, which is another reason why I thought 2 in the same week isn't right, you know. So and these guys do this for a living, whereas it was me as an independent curating. Yeah, exactly. We're moving it into there, and I'm going to chair that day from the Health Investor Summit, as opposed to it being independently run as dentistry. It's going to be called Dentistry Reimagined
within that
stream. So. Same agenda. We've got a whole host of people confirmed from the top 4 DSOs. So we've got the CEOs of the top 4 DSOs confirmed. We've then got some of the fast growing groups, the CEOs of those confirmed as well. We've got 5 investor groups that are coming along to it. And then we've got a bunch of entrepreneurial figureheads within dentistry that we're approaching to say, would you come and talk about your experience of being an entrepreneur within the dental space? I'm hoping, I've actually got it on my list to ask you, so that's on camera.
Did Claude tell you to ask that?
No. Actually, the CEO of Nexus Media, when I was talking about coming here today, he looked you up and was like, he would be great at one of our Dental Times Owners Club Summit. Would you ask that question? So your reputation is one that, somebody from even outside of the industry is looking at you and thinking, this guy's done some really good things, and sharing your story. I feel like I should be interviewing you today, not the other way around for what you've done. But it makes sense to do it. And what I've done personally is agreed to chair all of their events in dentistry, so people get sick of me very soon, for the next 12 months anyway. So I chaired the last Dental Times Owners Club, which we held last week. We've got another one in September, and there's one in December, all UK based. We had 50 groups and independents go to the last one. We've got the CMA impressive. Coming to the next one. So we're trying to make it really topical about where the industry's going.
Yeah.
And then I'm a judge at the Health Investor Awards for Dental Group of the Year, which is really interesting because I know a lot of them really, really well.
Yeah.
But I'm one of many judges. I'm not the sole judge.
Yeah.
The other judges
and the
are
winner is Portman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, Portman Dentist.
So there's I'm the only one from the dental space.
Right.
But there's a host of judges, so it's a combination of, they're not going to take my opinion. They're looking at the quality of the submission and judging it accordingly on that, which I think is a fairer way of doing it.
Yeah.
Dentistry Reimagined still is what it was meant to be, just in a different home.
Different format.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think it's really, really important, Andy. At the end of the day, most people have got no idea where the money is in this industry. And I think through my experience at Parlour, I've met VC, I've met angels, we've raised money in the past. There's a whole industry out there,
huge,
that most dentists have got no idea about. And I think it's quite important that we understand what parties are having an impact on our profession.
Yeah.
And you can be super negative if you want and say you don't want corporates in your industry and you want it all to be small cottage businesses that are privately owned. But as you mentioned before, in terms of AI, that's not under your control.
No.
So you can only control the things that you're aware of.
Yeah.
And even those, many of which you can't control and you have to accept.
Yeah.
But I think education in that regard is really, really important. I think the more into level, which I really like the way that you've done that, and building it up from the independent all the way up to the big group, and all those different interplays between them, I think it's really important, and it'll help to guide people's decision-making process for the future. I guess if they're a young owner just getting started, or if there's someone much further down the line, anyone that hasn't read Build to Sell, I can't remember the name of the author now, David something. It's a brilliant book for any practice owner because, as you rightly say, you might think you've got a brilliant business and the turnover might be really strong, but it may just not be an asset that you can sell for a value that you think is reasonable.
Yeah.
And there are some quite obvious reasons why,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, agreed. I've got a book that's going to come out in February that's along those lines, specific to dentistry.
I look forward to reading it.
Yeah, definitely. I'll send you an advanced copy. You can give me some critique.
That'd be great.
And the reason that's taking so long is I'm not using AI to generate it. I'm basically writing, using AI to check. But then I've got a number of people, Fuzz Jamal, now yourself, that have agreed that they will read it and critique it, so I can polish it before it then goes out, because it needs to resonate. And it's not going to be a number one bestseller because it's dental specific. But if it helps 10 people, it's digital download. You can. It's going to be an Amazon distribution, so you can choose a printed copy if you want. But so it's just my way of kind of putting everything that I'm talking about in one place.
Yep.
Using that for content myself, ongoing. But if it helps someone, then why not?
Yeah, it's great. Do you have a passion for writing? I felt that through your LinkedIn posts.
I've always So the one thing that I was really good at school was the English language, English grammar, English language. I also did theatre studies as well in school, so a bit of a entertainer in that regard. But yeah, I do. I think that I'm more articulate on paper than I am verbally.
Right.
I think
I don't think that's true. I think you're being overly critical on yourself again.
Yeah, definitely. But I just think that the way I just love the written word, and even from the self-critiquing point of view, at a point in time I decided to go for counselling just to kind of understand psyche and things like that. And one of the things that they taught me to do is if there was something, apparently I'm somebody who likes to control things.
Strange that.
Yeah. And I get frustrated when I can't control things. And one of the things that I was taught to do is in a situation where I've not been able to control it, and it's not spiraled out of control, but it's not gone my way.
Yep.
Write to it. And write to it with "I'm feeling this way because," and keep, like lines in school, keep writing "I'm feeling this way because," "I'm feeling this way because," until you feel like you've got it all out. And that can be quite an emotive, thing to do. But then equally, you've got to write the reply, so that you write the reply from the situation to you,
right?
And it helps deal with it. Because we're all really good at locking things away in our subconscious and putting a lid on them. And this is a way of not doing that. So,
well, it's shifting the problem from your limbic emotional system forward into your prefrontal cortex.
Agreed.
So taking it out of your chimp mind,
yes,
and moving it into your human computer mind.
Yeah, exactly. So, for me, that's worked as a way, and I would encourage people to do that. So, written word is really important to me. Yeah, I do enjoy it, and I've written a lot more. Yeah. So that's the thing. So I get lost in writing, and I think I've written 10 pieces ready to go out. So
10 articles or 10 books?
No. So one book, 10 articles.
Right.
The theme is common through them all. Today I launched the Accidental Dental Strategist, which is the kind of brand that I'm going to be using for me personally in my thought process. Didn't choose to come into this industry. I'm here asking different questions, and that seems to have got me a reputation of somebody that's a strategist. But it is completely accidental. So that's why I've kind of borne that through. But I just sat down for a little period of time and just started to write and couldn't stop. So now what Claude's helped me do is create a calendar of when I'm going to release things. So today, Claude knew I was coming to you, and Claude determined that it was the best date for me to release the Accidental Dental Strategist.
Right.
So that's what I've done on the way here today. That's now been launched, and how that goes, I don't know. But yeah, so there's AI using me, helping me with something that I would have to sit down and think about.
Yeah.
But the writing itself is me, not AI.
What's your writing practice look like? Do you do it at a certain time of the day? Do you have a certain location?
Yeah.
Is it typed? Is it written?
No.
How does it all work?
Yeah, so my handwriting is illegible. So it's never handwritten.
Yeah.
I do write the letters when I'm writing about a situation and I'm not in control. I handwrite them.
Yeah.
But if I'm writing a piece, no, it's not. So there's two ways that I do it. I use dictation, and then use the dictation as a framework for me to then write on top of, if that makes sense. So
you use Whisper Flow.
Yeah, definitely.
So good, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So, but that really helps me because I wake up at between 4:30 and 5 every day. That's my most productive time. At this time of the day, I could hardly speak because I've been through,
well.
Yeah, I've been through the full day.
You can sleep on the train home.
Yeah, my wife's like, "Why can't you sleep past that time?" I've never been able to.
Yeah.
I get up and I'm full of energy, and it's the best time for me to do it. And I love the fact that nobody else is awake.
Me too.
So I can bash out a load of work before 7:30, 8 o'clock when everybody wakes up and we've got to get into family life and stuff like that now. And that's what I do. I've got a converted room in our house. My desk is in the corner. It's got a very comfortable green chair in the other corner that I can just sit in, and that's my space. What I also like about it is it's because our house was 3 cottages. It's like a through room. So whilst it's my space, the family come through it.
You're not alone.
Yeah. And even when I'm on video calls, I don't blur the background. I'm like, if you see my dog rolling around, you can see my son, coming in and he's 13, 14, and he comes in like a stroppy teenager and slams stuff around. I'm like, this is just me.
That's the authenticity coming through again.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I like that. I mean, my office is actually in here. There's a secret door behind it.
Okay.
I actually it draws me away from using that room.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm probably quite similar to you in many ways, that I would actually prefer to be around everyone else, even though I want to be doing my work. I don't want to be isolated away.
Yeah, I get
even though you
depressed.
might be a bit more productive there.
No,
but
so part of the counselling is I've worked for a home for 15 years, so it's a long time, well before COVID and everybody else. And there is times when I'm at home for prolonged periods that depress me because there's nobody else in my house. My wife's a teacher. My kids are at school. We did end up getting a COVID dog, like a lot of people. And she's still with me, and she looks at me at 12 o'clock if I haven't walked her and starts crying, so that gets me away from my desk. But there are times where I can feel quite low and depressed being at home. I just love it when the family's around. I didn't enjoy COVID too much because I was still working, trying to keep dental practices open at Portman, and they were all off enjoying the fantastic weather that we had at the time. So that was a bit like stretch, but generally I had my office outside in an outbuilding that we've got. I moved into the house, one, because there was nobody there, and I felt, why am I in an outbuilding when there's nobody in the house? And secondly, we turned that into a pub instead. So
nice.
it made a better use of it. So but no, I like it. I don't want to be isolated. I like to be a part of it, but I couldn't work in an office anymore.
Really?
So when I visit the Agilio offices now, I can do a day, and that's it. I have to kind of get out of there. I've conditioned myself now that's I don't think
your own environment.
Yeah, I would probably not be as productive if I was in an office every day because I'd get distracted.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Well, Andy, I mean, that's been a fascinating conversation, and there's so many more topics. We'll have to bring you back once the book comes out. I'll get you on that podcast book tour.
Yeah.
But I like to finish the conversation by looking forward again into the next 10 years. And in your opinion, what do you think is going to be a fad, a gimmick that doesn't make it much further past 2026? What do you think is going to be the future, something that really has a huge impact on dentistry over the next 10 years?
Yeah, so I mean, the agentic AI, I think, is really going to take a hold and just take away a lot of friction. So in the majority of dental practices, the biggest lost value is in their patient base. So I think that's going to unlock, and that will generate a huge amount of additional revenue for dental practices if they've got the capacity to deliver it. What it can also do is create demand where you don't have the supply. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic of, can you throttle that to accommodate your capacity? Or will that create a challenge that you want to add another surgery, or so it's going to be interesting
good
what that actually does. Yeah, definitely good problem. So I think agentic AI's got a real future. You asked about fads, so that's a really difficult one in dentistry because I think right now most of the stuff that's coming out is coming out in the same vein, so it's all AI-esque, if that makes sense. That's a really difficult, and it's one that I would probably say outsourced call centers will not last past 2026. I think
that's something that's come in relatively recently as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it will come in and go out again as quickly as it has come in, and the groups that have invested in them as fixed costs will struggle more than the ones that have outsourced it to a third party. But going back into the vein of agentic AI, I just think that you would be able to handle the smaller amount that agentic AI can't handle for you with the people in your organization already, rather than having to have a specific call center type agent. So I think that for me, that's the kind of biggest fad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. Well, Andy, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and good luck with all the fun stuff that you're building. I can't wait to see how it goes.
Thank you, and I appreciate the invitation as well.
So thanks for making it all the way to the end, guys. I hope this episode really gave you a lot of value. If you did enjoy it, then please do share it with your colleagues and hit the subscribe button and like below to help us get bigger guests, bigger value, and really help build this community.